There we go. Finally. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, everybody. Here with another Tuesday night live stream, 7 p.m. Central Time every single Tuesday. Ready to really recap a lot of what happened last week in week 3, since we didn't get to do a week 3 recap, and also getting ready to preview the biggest weekend of college football that we might have all season long. This weekend, guys, is about to be amazing. This weekend, guys, is about to be historic. I think it said it was the most ranked versus ranked matchups in a single weekend since like 2015. We've got 6 ranked versus ranked matchups on deck. We're going to have a lot of upsets. We're going to have a lot of great games. And if you thought last week was good, if you thought week 2 was good, just wait until we hit the ground running. Starts this Thursday, but the big-time matchups start, obviously, on Saturday. We're going to here to take your comments, take your questions, take your calls, and break down everything that's going to happen this weekend. We're really, really excited about it. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Welcome back again to the Gridiron Expert here on YouTube. So grateful for all of you guys, part of our GE Nation. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hammer that like button as you come into the stream. It helps our analytics a lot, helps other people find our channel, helps our GE Nation grow. And you can see we're growing with all the gear we have behind us. You can send us some gear to that mailing address down in the description below. We're growing with our expert picks. We are just 25 sales away from getting to our goal, which means a 24-hour live stream. So if you want to make some guaranteed money, guaranteed winnings, go sign up for those expert picks. You will be one of the 25 people we need to get to that 24-hour live stream right here on the channel. Pretty dang special. We'd love to get to it. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and, we'll do what we normally do, and we'll hit the stream, we'll hit the chat, kind of address some questions and comments and things in there. And then we'll go open up the phone lines a little bit, and then we'll wrap up with the chat like we always do. You guys know the drill at this point, and, after a while, we kind of start getting into a good routine, getting into a good rhythm here every Tuesday. I will tell you this, that starting next Tuesday's live stream, we're going to do things like we typically do, but we're also going to add an extra segment in there. We're going to start previewing what a 12-team college football playoff would look like. After the conclusion of this week, we're going to have a major shakeup in the rankings, and just because of the amount of ranked versus ranked matchups we have. So we'll have a major shakeup in the rankings. We'll be about a third of the way through the season for most teams. Most teams will have already played 4 of their 12 games. So it's going to be a great opportunity for us to be like, hey, all right, this is a good measuring stick, a good eye test of what a 12-team playoff would look like. And I'm really excited to see what it looks like after everything that transpires this Saturday. So that will be a feature in our live stream next Tuesday, and we'll do that every week up until the end of the year, up until the end of the college football season as we get prepared for Selection Sunday. But real quick, guys, how's everybody doing? Eddie Rose, good to see you. C. Glassman, 81. Flo, good to see you. South Tex, let's go UCLA, baby. Big game in Salt Lake City this Saturday. We'll talk more on that here in a little bit. Stone, Thomas Takes, good to see you, my guy. Nice to have you here. Eugene Murphy, good to see you as well. Robert, the perennial visitor here on the channel. Robert's like every live stream, so I appreciate it. What's going on, Mitch? Good to see you, man. Where's the suit? I'll be honest with you. I got this shirt. My brother gifted me this shirt this last weekend. It is plain Jane, man, just college football. And I thought it was so good. Thought it was great. And I was like, I couldn't think of a better time to wear it than before one of the biggest weeks of the year. So the suits are going to be back next week. Don't worry about it. Suits are going to be in every video we have the rest of this week. Don't worry about that. But today I was like, let's kick back, relax, just be a little more casual. Why not wear a shirt representing the thing that we're going to be talking about all day long? So, it looks weird, right? We look out of place going a little more casual, but we had to switch it up a little bit. And I had to give my brother some credits for this nice gift. He gave me this gift on his birthday. How unselfish is that? I come here with a present for him, and he's like, "Oh, here's a present for you." And I'm like, "What was that about?" So that was pretty cool, pretty nice. Let's see. So Flo, good to see you. C. Glassman, good to see you. College football guy, what's going on, my man? Nice to have you here. Good to see you, Mr. Swan 88. And Ray Johnson, Colorado, headed to a meat grinder. Let's go ahead and go through some of the chat real quick before we open up the phone lines. Start with Eddie real quick. Yeah, that probably was the best win in the Drink Quiz era for sure. That felt like a signature win in a way. Obviously, the LSU win back in 2020 was a big one. But this Kansas State win was really, really impressive for Missouri. I mean, hitting a 61-yard field goal as time expired, the longest field goal in SEC history. That is pretty remarkable. What a crazy way for that game to end. And the crazy thing, too, Eddie, is I really felt like Kansas State was outplaying Missouri for the majority of that game. But give credit to Missouri and their defense, man. Every time Kansas State had an opportunity to bounce back and take the lead or extend their lead, the Missouri defense stepped up big. And credit to the Missouri offense. We kind of criticized them in our video last week. We said they haven't been explosive. Against South Dakota, against Middle Tennessee, Missouri wasn't doing anything. They weren't doing anything special. And then all of a sudden, Brady Cook has one of the best games of his career. The offense is all over the place. Luther Burden had a breakout game. I mean, it was a very, very impressive performance for the Tigers. Should have kept my pick. I switched it. I switched to Kansas State. I just didn't like what I saw out of Missouri in week 2. I really liked what I had seen out of Kansas State the first couple of weeks, and Missouri ended up proving me wrong. And even though we picked them back in the preseason, they still kind of proved me wrong. Got a massive win. Now they got a big showdown up against Memphis. So big win for Missouri. I like what Mr. Glassman said here as well. In our rankings, we had Florida ranked ahead of Missouri. And I think there's a couple of factors that go into that. If you look at the rankings, Missouri for us was right on the outside looking in. And actually, if you watched our Week 4 prediction video that came out today, Memphis versus Missouri is one of those 5 games on the big board. Very underrated game in St. Louis this Saturday. And we said, if Missouri can win that game, they will be in the rankings. No doubt about it. At least for us, they will be in the top 25. No doubt about it. But Florida was ahead of them because if you look at the margin of victory, and people say that shouldn't matter, but it does. For Florida to host Tennessee, kind of everybody beating up on Florida. They were about a touchdown underdog. No one was giving them any credit. And to beat them by like 13 points, but a game that was much worse than the final score indicated, that was really impressive to me. Factor in their only other loss was by about 13 points on the road to Utah, which people will credit how bad Florida looked in that game, and they did, but not many teams look good in Salt Lake City. That dominant of a performance against Tennessee, to me, weighed a little bit more than Missouri's narrow victory over Kansas State at home after looking relatively lackluster in the first 2 weeks. So I think it was the team they beat, higher-ranked team, more dominating than Missouri. Yes, Missouri is undefeated. Florida's loss, though, their one loss was to a quality opponent on the road, first game of the year with a new quarterback, things like that. So, again, like Florida, I think we have them at 24. Missouri is 26. They are the first team out in bracketology terms. So, Missouri, if you take care of business and beat Memphis, you will be in our top 25. So, Eddie, your Missouri team will be ranked in our top 25 next Monday if you win this Saturday. And for the record, I believe they will. Should be a good game, though. And good Eugene Murphy, good to see you. Robert, good to see you. Talking about Colorado, and we'll talk on that in a second. Oh, he's got Ryan Day going to be embarrassed. We'll talk on that game in a little bit. We've got some tabs pulled up on that game, so we'll talk. Let's see here. Ray Johnson, good to see you. What is my pick for the Oregon-Colorado game? We will have that prediction out here in a few days, Ray. Stay tuned for that. We'll have that prediction out in a few days. So I don't want to give anyone any spoilers, but we'll have a whole video dedicated to the Oregon-Colorado. And we'll touch more on that game here in a second. But that all I'll tell you right now is I think this game is not going to go the way people think. And then we'll touch more about it here soon. Let's see. Matthew Hazelhorse, good to see you, my guy. Cash Money, congratulations on the big win. BYU taking down Arkansas. That was a pretty decent-sized upset, I would say. It was a game that probably a lot of people weren't talking nearly much about. Neither team was ranked, but a big win for BYU. So your pick of BYU beating Kansas by 14, I'm not gonna go out there and disagree with that right now because I don't know. I didn't think BYU would beat Arkansas, and yet here we are. So it'll be interesting to see if BYU's offense can keep up with the Kansas offense. That's the $1 million question, right? If you go back and watch the BYU-Arkansas game, BYU played a very good game. It benefited from a lot of Arkansas mistakes, had a lot of short fields. They had a big kickoff return at one point. They benefited from a 10-yard Arkansas punt. They benefited from Arkansas failing to get a 4th and 1 at midfield. So Arkansas outgained BYU like over 150 yards in that game. Arkansas, if you want my honest opinion, should have won that game. It was idiotic coaching decisions, idiotic mistakes, and a team that just gave up that allowed BYU to come back and get into it. And credit to BYU for doing that. And credit to BYU's defense also for doing that. But So your pick of them beating Kansas, I'm not ruling that out, especially after seeing Kansas really play a lackluster game against Nevada, arguably the worst team in college football right now. And Kansas only survived that game by 7. So again, cash money, congrats. Big win for you guys. Happy for you, genuinely. And excited to see how BYU looks in that first Big 12 game. They already took down an SEC opponent on the road. No reason they can't take down a Big 12 opponent on the road now. So really, really excited for that game on Saturday. Very underrated game. College football guy, yeah, week 3 was a weird week. And that's the thing with this year right now, right? The thing that we've got right now, and real quick, I'm going to come back to you, college football guy. Mitch, thank you so much, man. Whenever we get a super chat, I like to come in and immediately hit that. I like to immediately hit the button so we can pull it up, even if we're in the middle of a conversation. So, Mitch, thank you, my guy. Thank you so much. Hate that we're not going to be able to talk to you tonight. We'll catch you next week, hopefully, for sure. And we'll talk on Twitter, as always, for sure. But Iowa State sucks. Kansas is winning. So Kansas is going to beat BYU. Hopefully, Iowa State bounces back against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State sucks, too. If you want to be the honest truth. So, yeah, rough loss against Ohio. I feel for you, my guy. I do. But I'm not ruling out a win over Oklahoma State because Oklahoma State looked terrible, too. So, season's not lost. Season's not lost yet. But appreciate you and your support, Mitch. And like I said, we'll talk soon. Congrats on the win Friday night, too, by the way. Big win in high school football. So we'd like to see. So we'll talk soon. And DM as well. Thank you, my guy. It's good to see you, DM. Hate that you won't be able to stay for a while. We'll catch you next week. Hopefully. Shoot some emails back and forth. But we appreciate you and your support. Thank you again for stopping by. Even just for a little bit. We always appreciate it. All right. Let's see here. Go back to college football guy real quick. Yeah, it was one of those things where who wants it, right? Who wants to be good in college football, right? I mean, you go back and look at some of the top teams in the country. Georgia was down 14-3 at halftime, right? Wasn't it 14-3 at halftime to South Carolina? Yeah, they battled back. They won by 10, shut them out in the second half, which was big. But the number one team in the country did not look all that great. Michigan, for all it's worth, hasn't looked all that great either. They played some really weak opponents in the first 3 weeks of the year. I personally think Michigan's kind of holding out with the Jim Harbaugh suspension. I think they've just kind of been sleepwalking through those first couple of games because they know they can. They haven't had their head coach on the sideline. They know they were going to beat up on these weaker opponents. Now, I think Harbaugh's coming back this week against Rutgers, is he not? Was it 3 or 4 game suspension? Either way, he's about to be back. And I think that's where you're going to see Michigan turn on. And they're about to enter Big Ten conference play. You can't sleepwalk through any conference game. I don't care who you're playing. So, but Michigan didn't look all that great against Bowling Green, got the win there. Florida State barely surviving Boston College. That was a scare, really benefiting from over 130 yards roughly of penalties from Boston College. You take away half of those, and I think that BC probably wins the game. Imagine how much that would have shaken up the college football world. So they didn't look good. Texas took like 3 quarters for them to pull away from Wyoming, who did beat Texas Tech. So they're not a bad team, but still, that to me was a bit of a letdown game for Texas following the win against Alabama. Those are top 4 teams. Penn State looked solid against Illinois. Oregon didn't do anything special against Hawaii. Obviously, that's taking care of business. Ohio State took down Western Kentucky. But you're right. It was one of those things where no one this year has seemed to be extremely dominant, and I like it. I really, really like that. I like the fact that we are in a spot in college football right now where there is a little bit more parity, and maybe someone's going to emerge as that front runner here, but in a couple of weeks, especially as we get into conference play. But Alabama's down right now. They didn't look good against USF. That was a horrible performance against the Bulls, embarrassing performance, I would say, against the Bulls. So, Alabama is down. They're out of the equation. Georgia, I don't think is nearly as dominant as they have been these last couple of years. Tennessee got the brakes beaten off of them against Florida. And if they got the brakes beaten off them against Florida, they're probably going to get the brakes beaten off them against Georgia, despite having that game in Knoxville. So questions there. Missouri beats Kansas State, a top 15 team, goes down to an unranked team in the SEC. Ole Miss looked decent against Georgia Tech, but nothing crazy special. And they're struggling to run the ball with who we thought would be one of the better running backs in the country in Quinshon Judkins. So there's a lot of questions across all of college football right now. The Pac-12 is so wide open. It's Colorado for real, Oregon for real, USC for real. Well, their defense hold them back. Will Washington be legit? I mean, like I said, there's so many questions, and it's great because the last couple of years you've gone into the season, you're like, we know who the playoff is going to be more than likely. It's going to be Georgia and Clemson and Alabama and Ohio State, this and that and the other. and there's so much parity, and no team has separated themselves from the pack. Granted, we're only 3 weeks in. We haven't even gotten to the bulk of conference play for many of these programs yet. But if this trend continues, we're going to be in for a very, very, very fun year. And what a great way to end the 4-team college football playoff era. What a great way to end the way for some of these conferences, with the Big 12 expanding, the Big 10 expanding, the Pac-12 being done. So I like the direction we're heading. And week four is going to give us a lot of answers to these questions. We're going to see a lot of separation. We're going to get to see who's legit, who's not. And that kind of goes into this question here with Ray. What's my opinion on Colorado's hype? Is it a publicity stunt, or is Deion Sanders the real deal? I guess I'm going to make it personal. Yeah, I'm sure if Deion Sanders was watching the Gridiron Expert, he'd probably talk about me on College Game Day. I don't think he's the real deal, if you want my honest opinion. I think he's a 1 or 2 year hit wonder. And maybe I'm going to eat my words later. Maybe I'm going to eat my words and, they'll beat Oregon or beat USC. Maybe so. I would not bet money on that, though. Look at Colorado. They've been fun to watch. The story has been great. What Deion has done in the first 3 weeks at Colorado compared to what they've done the last few years has been pretty remarkable. Deion is a great motivator. He is a great recruiter. He's a great marketer. And you can't take that away from it all. And I think all in all, he's a pretty decent coach as well. But I don't think he is the type of guy that is going to be able to have long-term success at any program, whether that's Colorado. There are people saying that he's going to jump to the SEC at some point. If your school wants publicity, and they want money and they want a boost in sales and they want, to be somewhat relevant, go hire Deion. But if you want to win and you want to win championships or make elite bowl games, probably not going to be the guy, because he might do that once or twice, but that's it. Colorado, Deion knows how to utilize the transfer portal, and that's you've got to be able to do that this day and age in college football. You have to. But you also have to know, for example, Deion's got to know who his players are. Outside of his, 2 sons that play on the team and Travis Hunter and a couple of other big stars, he doesn't know his guys. He knows a handful of his guys, but he doesn't know all of them. And I think that this hype train is going to get derailed over these next couple of weeks because they beat a TCU team that lost tons of talent from that national championship squad a year ago, the one that made the national championship. And they beat Nebraska at home, and we know Nebraska right now is a bit of a dumpster fire. And they beat Colorado State. And here's the thing, too. That's where I'll kind of leave my last point on Colorado here. You got the win. And a win is a win is a win, all right? So no matter how good it looks, how ugly it looks, a win's a win. That's all you want at the end of the day. But if you're going to sit there for all week long and talk about how Jay Norvell made things personal, Nebraska made things personal, and you're going to hand out your sunglasses, and you're going to do this and that, and you're going to host College Game Day, and you go out there against a horrible, they're not good, Colorado State team as a 24-point favorite, and you need a 98-yard drive in the final minute and a half just to tie the game up, and then you go to not 1 but 2 overtimes just to survive it. If I'm Colorado, it's like, yay, great, we won, but crap, we're screwed once we get to Pac-12 play. If you can't dismantle Colorado State, especially after talking all this talk and getting all this hype and all that, and you can't dismantle them at home, what makes you think you're going to go out there and dismantle and beat Oregon, USC, Washington, Utah? What makes you think that? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it happens. My money would say no. So, no, I don't think he's the real deal. Look at what he did at Jackson State. It was great. Great publicity, great marketing, good teams. What happened when they got to the big games? I don't know his exact record, but he never won a Celebration Bowl. Jackson State found themselves in the Celebration Bowl the 2 or 3 years that he was there, got there, never won it. They couldn't win the big game. It's great if you can beat up on all the little guys, like Colorado's kind of done already. I know they beat 2 Power 5 opponents, but you can't beat up. You beat up on the little guys, that's all great. But if you can't win the big games, the quality games, the ones that matter the most, who cares? Who cares? So, no, I don't think he's the real deal. And quite frankly, I don't think he'll last at Colorado more than 5 years, whether that's because of whether he gets fired for failing in a couple of years or because he leaves for a new job, where I think once he gets to a bigger school, whether that's the Big Ten, SEC, whatever, I don't think he'll succeed there. And I'm not a hater. I'm not hating on the guy. I really like what he's doing at Colorado. I love seeing Colorado being relevant. I love seeing them being talked about. I know their fans do too, after so many years of misery. But it is a great publicity stunt. And I think we got to, as the media, got to scale it back, man. I mean, I was going through, I was on Instagram the other day, and college football's Instagram page, the ESPN college football Instagram page, whatever, 12 straight posts. They had 12 consecutive posts of Colorado. That's a problem. And I know they hosted game day. I know it was a spectacle. I know they're promoting it, whatever. But you have so many other things going on, and you put 12 straight posts about one team, that is a problem. That is an obsession. And that's an unhealthy obsession when we've got like 133 FBS teams, and we're focusing on just one. The problem. Not a big fan of it. Let's see who else we got here. We'll come back to that, I'm sure. Again, we appreciate you, Mitch, for that super chat. Obviously, Ray is big on Oregon. Doggy says Cougars are going to beat Kansas. Anthony James, good to see you. Fight on, baby. Nice to have you here. Yeah, big game. Big game's coming up for sure. Should dismantle Arizona State. Next week, you get to take on Colorado, like we just mentioned. Let's see here. We'll get to that question in a second. Hey, Kenny, thank you, my guy. I really appreciate that super chat as well. Thank you. Again, they're not popping up top, so I'm scrolling down. When I see it, I'm gonna click on it. But I thank you for that. What about Nico at quarterback? Man, I hate to see what happened to Garrett. First off, obviously, well, first, Kenny, congrats on the win. How about that? How about we just say congrats on the win? Winning the backyard brawl, getting revenge over Pitt at home. That was a game that I really thought Pittsburgh was going to win. I thought that for a while. This just looks to be a down year for Pitt. It looks to be a bit of a down year. This is a team that traditionally is very strong defensively, and Phil Jurkovec just hasn't panned out. We thought he might come in and do decent at quarterback. Really hasn't done that. Defense hasn't played well at all. So, this might be one of those down years for a Pittsburgh team that we thought could finish in the top 4, top 5 of the ACC standings. So credit to West Virginia for that, for getting that win. Hate to see what happened to Garrett, obviously, but I think Nico's going to be fine. I really do. I think a lot of people, we got to keep in mind, Kenny, that this was a battle. Garrett Green, Nico Marchiol going at it all offseason long. We really didn't know who was going to be starter until right up towards the beginning of the season. So this isn't some guy that was a bona fide scrub, bona fide second, third string quarterback. This is a guy that was in the mix. And I thought he looked semi-decent in relief, or semi-decent throughout this year, decent in the backyard brawl against Pittsburgh. I don't know how he's going to look this week against Texas Tech. It's a really tough matchup. He's going to have a tall task of finding a way for West Virginia's offense to keep up with Texas Tech's offense. I mean, all the eyes are going to be on Nico this week, finding a way to make sure the offense moves and can match Tyler Shuck in this defense or this offense step for step. But I do think it's a solid. I think he's going to be solid. I do think he's going to be okay. West Virginia has gotten off to, I think, a better start than we anticipated, and maybe most people anticipated, and that's big because we knew this was a possible last year for Neil Brown. This was his last ride, his last push. He has to get West Virginia to a bowl game. A losing season for West Virginia is just not going to cut it. So Neil Brown getting a major win over a rival, a double-digit win over a rival at home, getting off to a pretty strong start. The only loss on the road to Penn State. Not many teams are going to win Happy Valley. So 2-1 start, can't complain. Now it's just a matter of what can they do in conference play. And if you look at the schedule, and Kenny, this is a handful of very winnable games on there. Just got to win 4. Find a way to win 4, and you're going to be looking pretty good. So, Kenny, again, appreciate that super chat, my guy. Thank you very much for that. And, go West Virginia, man. Go Mountaineers. Really, really excited to see what happens there. Did Alabama suffer a hangover from the Texas game? No, they didn't. I think the Alabama dynasty is over. I think it's gone. It's toast. I don't want it to be. I love Nick Saban. I genuinely do. I'm not an Alabama fan, but I really like Nick Saban. He's a great guy. He's a great coach. So I hate to see them struggling. But they didn't suffer a hangover. This team just doesn't want it. The game has changed so much, and we've talked about that. The way college football is structured now with the NIL and the transfer portal, that's something that, to coaches like Dabo and Nick Saban and guys like that kind of built their brands on prior to all this happening. They're not used to that. And really, they don't want to do that. Same case in college basketball. Guys like Coach K and Boeheim at Syracuse, they were against it, and that's kind of why we're seeing we saw the end of their careers. Yeah, they were getting older. They were like, I'm too old for this. I'm not dealing with this. I'm not dealing with recruiting through the transfer portal while we're trying to recruit high school. I'm not going to deal with paying players and all that crap. We're just not going to do it. If Bama did not suffer a hangover from the Texas game, normal Alabama teams would have lost a game, bounced back, and annihilated the team they played next, especially a team as bad as USF. This Alabama team clearly does not have an answer at quarterback. Here's my logic on this too. Nick Saban made a really good choice. They got the win. It was ugly. It wasn't good. Alabama looked terrible. But what he did was actually really smart. I don't think Alabama was ever in any danger of losing this game to USF. They just weren't. And so he knew if there was ever a time to test out a new quarterback other than Jalen Milroe, this was it. This was it. You're not going to go out there and test new quarterbacks this week against Ole Miss. You're not going to do it against, Mississippi State or Arkansas. Or any SEC game, you're not going to do it. So it was like, why don't we go out there and give Tyler Buchner the start and maybe sprinkle a little Ty Simpson in there, and let's see how they do. If they go out there and blow it out of the water and the offense just clicks a lot better, well, there we go. We'll ride with them next week. If they don't, we've seen what Jalen Milroe can do in week 1 against Middle Tennessee. We saw what he could do against Texas. While he did have 2 costly interceptions, he really didn't play all that bad. I think it was a good strategy. So, yeah, it was horrible. Alabama looked like crap. I don't think you're going to see that same team come out this Saturday. I think you're going to see a much better Alabama team at home against Ole Miss with Milroe back under center. He took that as an opportunity to say, let's throw our quarterback and give him real game experience, not third or fourth quarter experience, and we're already at 50 like against Middle Tennessee. Right from the start, let's see what we look like. And they looked god-awful. And that gave him everything he needed to know. It was like, Buckner's not it. Simpson's not it. Milroe is. So, honestly, it was a good move by Nick Saban. It didn't look good, but a win's a win, no matter how good, how bad. And I think with Milroe back under center, Alabama's going to look a lot better this coming week against Ole Miss. And we'll have our prediction for that game coming out in a few days. Stay tuned for that. I think it's coming out on Thursday night, so stay tuned for that. But this is again, the Alabama dynasty, I think, is over. I don't see them running the table the rest of the way. So that would be another year that they miss out on the college football playoff completely, and maybe miss out on the SEC championship, depending on how they fare against LSU and A&M, who I think are, and maybe Ole Miss, the top competitors in the West. But no, it was a good move. I don't think it was a hangover. Wait for this Saturday, and then we'll really kind of have a true judgment call on that. Yeah, Anthony, the SEC definitely is wide open. We talked a lot about that last week, and I don't want to rant on that again. But you're right. Well, we probably will at some point. Let's see. Who else we got join the chat here? I need to take a look. Mark, what's going on, Mark? Good to see you. Our resident Miami fan. Nice to see you. He's advocating for The Rock, who was the guest picker at Colorado, despite being a Miami alum. So that was interesting. I agree. Let's see here. A lot of people talking about Colorado and Deion Sanders, and I think we'll talk about that here pretty soon for sure. Let's see. Comic Dude, good to see you, my guy. Nice to have you here tonight. The work blues, but you're here. I feel that. Well, first of all, I can't say much. I'm with you, man. Work is it ain't fun, man. It ain't fun. But come over here, unwind with us, relax, talk some college football, and your team's 3-0. I think we've got, you can't see it's covered up, but yeah, it's got a Rutgers helmet that you sent us, by the way. Your team's 3-0, baby. Come on now. Big win over Virginia. Rutgers has looked good. I mean, Rutgers really has. I mean, they've 3-0, undefeated, and in the games they've played, they haven't looked bad. I think in years past, like Rutgers barely gets by Temple, barely gets by Virginia Tech. They're winning these games by double digits. And I know Temple and Virginia Tech aren't the best teams in the world or anything, but, I mean, Rutgers looking a lot better than maybe people thought. It's all starting to come together for Greg Schiano. I'm really excited to see it. We have him going to a bowl game. Had him doing that back in the summer, and so far we're perfect on our Rutgers prediction. Had him at 3-0, so hopefully they keep it up. But Comic Dude, good to see you, man. Glad you're here, and hope you're doing well. David Zello, good to see you. Got a lot of comments in there about stuff. We'll get to that in a little bit. Lance44, good to see you. What's going on, man? Peace. Nice to have you here. And let's see, last couple of comments, and we'll open the phone lines for a tiny bit. Take a handful of calls tonight. Last two things. Could Rutgers win the Big Ten West if they were in it? Yeah, they could. I really do believe they could. They are in an unfortunate division. The Big Ten West is garbage. I mean, if we're being honest here. Who's your best team? Who's your best team? Iowa? Your best team is Iowa? Yikes, right? I mean, Wisconsin hasn't lived up to the hype. They haven't looked good. They didn't look good in week 1 against Buffalo. Got beat at Washington State. Didn't look good against Georgia Southern for finally pulling away. Iowa still has a mediocre offense at best. Defense is great, but offense isn't that great. I think with Rutgers, they had home field advantage. Could probably find a way to beat Iowa. Nebraska is all over the place. Still has a long ways to go under Matt Rule. Still has a lot of questions across the board. Purdue's garbage. Northwestern's garbage. Illinois this year is garbage. So, I'm missing anybody? Missing a team in the West? Probably am somewhere. Northwestern, did I say them? I don't know. But, yeah, I do. I think if you put Rutgers over in the West, they are racking up a lot more conference wins than they are in the East, and maybe could win that division. I genuinely believe that. So, it's just an unfortunate draw, unfortunately. But, hey, there's winnable games on the schedule. Rutgers can still get there. Can Alabama lose 2 more games? Yeah, they could. Yeah, I mean, look, no game on Alabama's schedule remaining is easy. Ole Miss is a losable game because we have seen now that Tuscaloosa, it's not invincible. They got it handed to them against Texas. So, yeah, and they can lose to Ole Miss. They can lose on the road to Texas A&M. A&M beats Auburn this week, and then they beat Arkansas next week, and they're riding that high nationally ranked team. I think they play Alabama they play Alabama on the 7th. So if they win their next 2 games, which are very winnable, and they are ranked, good to go, only losses on the road to Miami, they could beat Alabama in College Station. And they got to host LSU, who's a very good team as well. So, yeah, I'm not ruling that out at all. Alabama could lose 2 more games. I don't know if they will, because that would mean at least a 3-loss regular season, maybe pushing 4. But that is not out of the realm of possibility or out of the question. So, no, great point and question, Danny. I really could. Kenny, yes, yeah, hit that like button, guys. As always, make sure to hit the like button. It really boosts the analytics, helps people more people find us. We're trying to get to 12,000 subscribers here soon. We're looking to get 25 more expert pick sales. Like we said, we are so close to our goal for the year. And again, if we do that, we sit here with you guys for a full 24 hours. We watch football with you guys. We take a lot of calls, take a lot of questions. We're really, really close. So spread the word. Do it yourself. Whatever we got to do, let's get to that quota by the end of the year. We got the whole year to do it. We just like to do it earlier so we can watch some games. But yes, Kenny, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for your support. As always, it goes a very, very long way. And congrats again on the big win. Hartman and King Julian. I love it. I love that analogy. Oh, my gosh. That's amazing. Notre Dame moves it more than King Julian. And if you want my honest opinion, see Glassman 81. They move it more like King Julian. And they're going to continue to move it this Saturday against Ohio State. They will continue to do it in a big way this weekend against Ohio State. All right, let's open up the phone lines for a little bit. We'll take a handful of calls. Again, try to keep it around 5 minutes per caller so we can get through as many as possible tonight. But let's open things up with our Gridiron Expert, live stream call line. There's your call-in number, 870-586-6624. Give us a call. I'd love to hear your thoughts on a wild week 3, which we kind of recapped a little bit already. A big week 4 coming up. I saw someone question a second ago. They said, when was the last time that we had six ranked versus ranked matchups in a single weekend? And that was, I believe, back in 2015. So it has been a very, very long time. And you're coming up almost 10 years if you want to feel old. 2015 doesn't feel like it should be 8 years ago, but here we are. It's going to be a massive weekend, guys. And like we said in our video that we posted today, like we're going to say throughout the night, like we're going to say throughout our 4 individual videos we have coming out starting tomorrow. Because remember, we're doing individual prediction videos for Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Ole Miss, Colorado, Oregon, and Oregon State, Washington State. So those massive games we're going to talk about. This is a weekend where you're going to get a lot of clarity on who's legit and who's not. So the guys in the chat talking about Colorado. This is not that one loss. Not that one loss says you're not legit. But here's the thing. If Colorado goes into Eugene and wins, without Travis Hunter, who's a bigger loss than people are making it out to be, holy cow, right? Like, watch out. Boulder will be rocking the next week when they host USC. If Colorado goes into Eugene and plays Oregon close, one possession game in the fourth quarter, maybe they lose by one possession, or maybe they lose by 10 or 14, but only because Oregon scores late. I say it's a pretty dang good outing. But if Oregon goes in there, or if Colorado goes in there and fails to cover the spread, which right now is Oregon by 21. Colorado strolls into Eugene and gets the brakes beaten off them, like a lot of people believe they will, then you can't help but wonder and be like, is Oregon legit or is Colorado legit? Because in the next week they play USC. And if they get the brakes beaten off them at home against USC, they're 3-2, which for Colorado is still a good record. But you can't say, oh, they're still legit. They're still really good. They're this and that. And everybody that hammered Colorado to go win the national championship, well, their bets have been lost. So you're going to get questions answered about Colorado this Saturday. You're going to learn just how good this team really is. You're going to have questions answered about Alabama this Saturday. You're going to learn if Alabama, if they go out there and destroy Ole Miss, say, okay, that's Alabama we've all known for years. They're going to be all right. They lose to Ole Miss, man, it's going to be a long year for the Crimson Tide. Ole Miss wins, maybe the Rebels are legit as a serious SEC title contender. They get to host LSU. They get a lot of benefits of playing these teams at home. They host LSU. They host Arkansas, who's no good, by the way. You're going to learn about Ohio State and Notre Dame. You'll learn about that. Is Notre Dame a true college football playoff contender? Can they really make the playoff? Can they really win the big game? They have really failed to get under Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly. They had a couple big wins here and there. They beat Clemson last year. That was great. But, like, this is legit. And in Ohio State, on the other hand, we've heard so much kind of crap about Ohio State these first 3 weeks. They haven't looked all that good, and they really haven't. So if they go in to South Bend at night and beat Notre Dame, that's a pretty massive victory and kind of quiets the doubters as they prepare for another really, really rough schedule in the Big Ten that includes road games at Michigan, at Wisconsin, and then the home game against Penn State, which will not be easy. So you're going to learn questions about that. You're going to get answered about that. So, again, this week is so big for so many. It's historic for so many reasons, and it is going to set us up for really the rest of the year. Like, what happens in week 4 is going to set the tone for the majority of these conferences and the majority of these teams the rest of the year, which is pretty dang exciting. Like, I mean, people can't undermine how big of a deal this is. So, yeah, I'm pumped. Let's take a look here. Again, 870-586-6624 is the number to call into the show tonight. Let's see here. It's going to be ticking across the bottom here. I want to make sure I'm able to click on these chats so we can kind of know what we're talking about here. But that number will be scrolling across the bottom on our little ESPN ticker there, so make sure to keep an eye there. Again, 870-586-6624. Go to Anthony here. Wisconsin more of a rebuild than we thought? Probably more than we thought. Although I don't want to pass judgment too quickly. Like, they're still 2-1. Even though they didn't look good against a solid Georgia Southern team who did win in Big Ten country last year, taking down Nebraska, even though they didn't look great against Buffalo, they're still only 2-1, and Washington State's a really good team, much better than we thought. So I don't want to pass judgment too quickly. Now, if they go on to lose to Purdue on Friday night for the first time since 2003, yeah, it's going to be a long rebuild. But, I mean, the talent is there. I think for Colorado or talking much about them. For Wisconsin, they are going through such a major, like, schematic change that it is going – I think we kind of expected just because of the guys they brought into the transfer portal, because of how good Tanner Mordecai was at SMU, because of how good we know Braylon Allen to be, all these different things. We just thought they were going to be great. And they haven't gelled as quickly as we want. Phil Longo coming in there and immediately changing the offense, something that we haven't seen in years. I mean, Wisconsin finally learned to air it out and almost be more balanced than they've been in years past. So I don't know if I want to say it's more of a rebuild, but the schedule certainly isn't getting any easier as they enter conference play. They've got Purdue. They've got Illinois. They got to get to host Ohio State. A lot of big games coming up for them. to the point where they can still honestly salvage a 9-win season. 9-win season means they can still lose 2 games. That would be pretty successful considering the disappointment they were last year. But it's going to have to start gelling pretty quick. They're going to have to figure something out quick. So, again, sometimes with new coaches and new schemes, it takes some time to figure things out. Give them credit against Washington State. They lost that game, but they battled back and were on the wrong side of some controversial calls. I don't believe they fumbled at the end of that game. I do believe they should have benefited from the safety that would have tied it up. They were down like 24-6, and the safety would have tied the game back up and given them the ball and all the momentum. So, had some questionable calls at the end. So, Wisconsin, they're a weird team right now. Again, we'll know more about them on the road at Purdue, because Purdue's not a bad team either. Like, Purdue has kind of exceeded my expectations. Like, they were very competitive against Fresno State, lost it. I know they're 1-2, lost it, went on the road to Virginia Tech, won that game, and then got torched at home by Syracuse. It's a very good team. Wish our guy Jerry Turner was here. Hype up his orange, because they are looking really, really good with Garrett Schrader. But can't completely disregard that game on Friday night, for sure. Great question, though. Very good question. Let's see. Most overrated and underrated game this weekend. Glassman says Oregon, Colorado overrated. Washington State, Oregon State underrated. I could agree with both of those. I could very much agree with both of those. Going back to the Colorado thing, I agree that we're probably overhyping that game a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this game is personal too for Deion, right? I mean, Dan Lanning, a couple weeks ago when it was announced that Colorado was joining the Big 12, comes out and goes, why do I care? Pretty much, why do I care they're leaving the Pac-12? Like, what has Colorado ever done in the Pac-12 to make it bad that we're losing them? And he's got a point, right? I mean, he's true. What have they done that's been relevant in the Pac-12 to make us be like, oh, man, I hate they're leaving? They've done nothing. They made the Pac-12 championship one time back in like 2016, played Washington and got destroyed. That's it. So, but Deion, of course, will take that personally. Kind of like that Michael Jordan meme, from The Last Dance. He goes, I took that personally. And then he went off and went on this time. And right now it's paying out. It's looking good for Deion. We'll see if it continues. But maybe a little bit overrated. I do agree with Washington State, Oregon State, the Left Behind Bowl. I love that's how people are dubbing it now. The 2 teams that were left behind in the Pac-12, everybody else went to the Big 10 or the Big 12, and Oregon State and Washington State are just like, what are we going to do? Where do we go? And we still don't know what their future is like. Maybe they join forward with the Mountain West. Maybe someone else picks them up. ACC as well. I mean, Cal and Stanford over to the ACC. None of that makes sense. But that is going to be a really, really sneaky good game. A battle of Oregon State's defense against Washington State's offense. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be really, really good. Pullman is not an easy place to play. I think Pullman is probably the most underrated place to play in the country. Washington State is dangerous at home, and we don't talk about them nearly enough. We talk about all the big dogs. We talk about Kinnick. We talk about, SEC country, really anybody in the SEC outside of Vanderbilt, how tough it can sometimes be to play at their home stadium. And we just kind of disregard Pullman as this tough place to play. And they have been home with some massive upsets in recent years, or very close, near upsets in recent years. And they're going to be rocking as a nationally ranked team hosting a top 15 team in Oregon State. I am very, very excited. Very excited for that game. So I think another underrated game, Robert, is Missouri and Memphis. Neither team's ranked. People are going to disregard it, but both are 3-0. Memphis finds themselves, to me, in the running for the top New Year's Six team, a top group of 5 team to make a New Year's Six bowl game. We're not talking about that enough, but like last year it was Tulane, but Tulane didn't really come on the scene till later last year. I mean, when they beat Kansas State, they kind of caught people's attention. And then it was kind of off to the races from there. But then, after Kansas State, they lost to Southern Miss. People forgot about that, and yet they still ended up winning the Cotton Bowl, 12-2. So Memphis, if they beat Missouri, and then they play Boise State the week after, they win both of those, they're going to be a top 25 team and will control their destiny in the American. It's one of the best teams there. UTSA, done. UTSA is out of discussion for a New Year's Six bowl. I mean, they missed their shot. They what was it? Lee Corso said they shot their wad against against Houston and Army. They lost both of those games. It's gone. Even a win this weekend against Tennessee, which isn't going to happen, will not get UTSA back in that conversation. Tulane maybe still in there. Fresno State maybe still in there, but Memphis is. So, and then Missouri as well. They're 3-0. They beat Memphis. They're 4-0. I think next week they play Vanderbilt. Could be 5-0 before they host LSU in Columbia. So a really, really intriguing game that I think is very, very underrated. It'll get buried because it's a night game, and all of the other big games are at night. Washington State, Oregon State's at night. Ohio State, USC's at night. We got some big-time matchups at night on Saturday, but that's another one that I really like. Getting our first caller, finally. Let's see who we got here. Let's see. All right, you're on the Gridiron Expert. Who do we have with us?
Hey, it's Danny, South Tech.
Hey, what's up, Danny? How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm good, but I don't know, man. I got to ask you about Deion, man. I don't know why you don't think he's the real deal. My view is this. He takes the team from one win to, I think at very least they're going to make a bowl. And in 1 year, they've got recruits who had offers from Bama, offers from much better schools that are going there. I think even if they're not like national championship contenders in 5 years from now, I think they'll at least be competing for conference titles. So that's my view. What do you think?
No, and I don't want to undermine at all what Deion has done. I mean, because you're right. You take the worst, arguably the worst team in college football last year, going 1-11, allowing over 500 yards on defense per game, and automatically triples that, has them nationally ranked, gets College Game Day there for the first time since '96. I mean, it's extremely impressive, and that's the thing, right? Like he, like you just mentioned, knows how to recruit. Will not deny that at all. He knows how to recruit, bringing these guys in from the transfer portal, whether it was from Jackson State or getting them to flip from an Alabama, or getting them getting them from the portal, guys that are kind of sitting there, kind of like in free agency, to come to Colorado. Extremely, extremely impressive. The marketing is impressive. I think obviously the swagger is impressive. I mean, the confidence that he has is impressive. But the concern that I have for Deion is again, like right now, and you're going to go through growing pains. I understand that. But right now you're 3-0 with 3 wins over teams that aren't all that great. Still a big deal because Colorado with any other coach probably would not have won those games. I will agree with that. But not all that great. TCU, a lot of new pieces. Nebraska, no good. Colorado State, you needed double overtime to beat them. Not good. The defense is also horrendous. I think you're right. I think they probably get to a bowl game. I think Arizona's winnable. Stanford's winnable. Arizona State's winnable. You need 3 more wins. They can get there. Maybe you continue to build. But what Deion, I think, is going to rely so heavily on throughout his coaching career, whether it's remains at Colorado for 5 more years, which will include time in the Big 12, maybe he jumps ship and goes to an SEC team, whatever, is this, I guess, utilization of the transfer portal? Is this utilization of making everything personal, this utilization of this, this mindset going to be sustainable for so long? I just don't think it is. I don't think it's a sustainable thing. And I think that the hype is there right now. Everybody's singing his praises. But if they were to go out and get just annihilated, and by annihilate, I mean lose by double digits to Oregon and USC these next 2 weeks, I think it's going to kind of derail the hype train for a little bit.
Yeah, I think the issues with that is, I don't know why Deion's getting all this criticism for using the transfer portal, because you got guys like Florida State, they were getting praised by ESPN for bringing in guys like Coleman. I know UCLA, half our teams like transferred. We got Steele, we got Sturdivant. So a transfer portal, I think it's just how people are going to build teams now. And as for the hype train, I'm sure it's going to be derailed a little bit after they finally lose. But the thing is, the game against Colorado State had 8 million viewers. When has that ever happened for a Pac-12 After Dark game versus a Mountain West team? So that's why I think that Colorado, this is sustainable, and he is going to keep building.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like 8 million, 9 million views they had, especially that late at night, is phenomenal. And I actually have nothing. I'm not a fan of the transfer portal. Period. The way it's structured, I'm not opposed to players transferring. I just don't like the way that it's been structured now, how it's utilized now. Have nothing against him using it. I have because you're right. That is the way. And we mentioned it earlier in the stream. you've got coaches, I think, like Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, who, haven't had to utilize the transfer portal in this way before. They've relied so heavily on just getting these blue chip recruits and blowing people out of the water that way. But now you've got blue chip recruits that after 1 year at Alabama or Clemson, whatever, they're into the transfer portal. Someone like Colorado scoops them up. And that's how you kind of have created more parity and have created teams that can be more competitive. So I'm not against him using that and the way he's done that at all. But I do think, like kind of what we just said, do we think, the 9 million viewers on Saturday was awesome for Colorado State. It was a great game. 3 years from now, say he's still at Colorado, and they have a 9 o'clock game kickoff against, let's say, I don't know, Texas Tech in the Big 12. Do we think that's going to still grow? I mean, I think part of it's the newness, right? I think part of it's fresh, it's new, it's holy cow, Colorado's 3-0, they're nationally ranked. This is an insane turnaround. It hasn't happened really like ever. So, but do we think that it's one of those things that after a while the newness wears off? Kind of like you mentioned, as soon as they get beat, it takes a minor step back. As soon as they lose a few more games, it kind of takes a more step back. And if you want my honest opinion, Danny, I don't think he stays at Colorado. I think he's there this year. I think he's definitely there next year. I don't think he stays more than 5 years at Colorado, though.
Do you think he would take a different job, or do you think he's just going to get fired because the wheels are going to come off?
I actually think he would take another job. I think he's definitely a hot commodity right now. He's probably towards the top of any team that actually has a legitimate shot at getting him. That's above Colorado, I would say, in terms of just status as a program or in terms of conference, is definitely having their eye on Deion Sanders. And I think that if the money was right and the opportunity he felt was right, especially once his sons are done, that's another thing too. Once both of his sons are gone, I think he's like, I got no ties here, not too worried about it. Let me go take this job in the SEC. Let me go take this job in the Big Ten, play against the big dogs. I don't necessarily think he's going to get fired unless the wheels really, really come off. And honestly, Colorado, for what it's worth, would be very idiotic to fire him, even if there are a couple of losing seasons in there. He would be very dumb to let them go because the hype surround – they have never seen this type of hype surrounding their program except for maybe back in the late 90s. I mean, that's from a financial standpoint, from a hype standpoint, it hasn't been there. So, unless he starts going back to 1-11, 2-10, which that won't happen, they would be dumb to let him go.
Yeah. No, I just think that the reason I think that he's going to continue to find success, and maybe he would take another job, but like you were talking about the 12 posts in a row from ESPN, and yeah, it's a little annoying when there's other games going on and other storylines. But the truth is, these kids want clout. Nowadays, kids want to be seen, and when they see 12 posts in a row by ESPN, they're going to want to come play for him. That's why I don't think the hype's going to wear off, because when he fails, I don't think they're going to stop posting him. I think him failing, if he loses a game, is going to become a story. I just think that the hype train is just going to keep going, and I think he's really changed the game there. So, anyway, that's my thoughts. Not to talk about Deion forever, because I know we're sick of it a little bit, but I just think he's going to be – I think he's the real deal. Anyway, I'm going to let you go, but thanks for the stream, and go Bruins.
Hey, appreciate you, Danny. Go Bruins, man. Good luck this weekend in Salt Lake.
Yes, sir. All right, later.
I appreciate Danny. Appreciate the call, my man. And yeah, seriously, good luck this weekend with UCLA and Utah. I think we put that on our big board today. That was one of our big games on the board today. And very, very excited for that one. That's going to be a fun one, especially if Cam Rising's not playing. Kind of evens the playing field a little bit. So I'm very pumped for that. And he makes good points. And I'm going to come back to what Danny was talking about with Deion in Colorado. But make a shout out real quick to my man, Luis Ramos. Thank you, my guy. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you so much for that super chat. Again, every single bit of it counts. And you're right. You're right. I had the opportunity to pick Florida State over Clemson. I doubled down on Clemson. Ooh, 19. Jeez. 41-22, a 19-point win. I hope you're wrong. Not for my pick. If Florida State wins, cool. I just hope it's a better game than that. I know you don't, Louise. I know you would much rather just have Florida State annihilate them so you can have a stress-free game. And I feel that. I do. From an unbiased standpoint for me, whether Clemson wins, Florida State wins, I don't really care too much. I just hope it's a good game. I did pick Clemson. I did double down on them. It's one of those games where it's a weird feeling, right? Like, I don't think, and before I get into this, I want to thank you again. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the super chat. Really do appreciate that, my guy. It goes a long way. Really does. So thank you. And I appreciate you being here for as long as you have been. I want to shout out to my man, Sal Tex, too. No comment. He just says super chat. Thank you, my man. Again, every bit. Love it. That's the most super chats we've gotten in a while. So thank you. Really does. And Sal Tex, Danny, appreciate the call, my man. We're going to get back to what you and I were just talking about over the phone. So thank you again. Want to go back to what Louise was saying here. It's one of those weird games where I don't think we should put too much stock into what we saw from Florida State this last week. They did not look good at all against Boston College. That was a game where they were favored by about 25, 26 points. I really thought they mopped the floor with them. BC's defense is horrendous, and they only survived by 2. Granted, I do think they were probably looking ahead a little bit to this game against Clemson. I do think BC was very motivated. I do think, obviously, the penalties really bailed out Florida State quite a bit in that game. But regardless, don't put too much stock into that. You're going to see a much different Florida State team coming out. But yet, despite that, despite the struggles Clemson has had, despite all that, Florida State finds himself less than a 3-point favorite entering the game. That's interesting, right? And I know home field advantage plays a very big role for that. Clemson would be on a 40-plus game home winning streak right now had they not lost to South Carolina in last year's season finale. We know Death Valley is a very difficult place to play. I think Florida State is actually going to benefit from the game being an 11 a.m. kickoff. I think, if you gave Clemson fans all day to tailgate and get hyped, and this was a 6:30 kickoff, it'd be a little bit different. But yet here we are, it's 11 o'clock. And really, to me, benefits Florida State in this case. But I'm leaning Clemson, and Louise, I'll come back and tell you why. But we're getting a call here, and we're going to get back to all the other chats and comments. But I want to take this call real quick. Get him on the phone here. All right, you were on the Gridiron Expert. Who's with us?
Oh, no, man. This is Thomas, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Hey, awesome, man. What's going on, Thomas?
Not much. I just want to talk about, alignment was the big talk of the summer and all that. And I've heard enough of that. But our college football playoff, our 12-team playoff, is only guaranteed through 2026. How do you think the Pac-12 dissolving or at least losing its power status is going to affect how our next iteration of the playoff looks in 27 and beyond?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because it's not even a matter of the Pac-12 losing its status. It's a matter of the fact that we're about to have multiple super conferences. The Big Ten is going to have 18 teams starting next year. The Big 12 will have 16. The SEC will have 16. The ACC is looking to have 16. And who knows what's going to happen to Oregon State, Washington State, Notre Dame if they ever join a conference. So it's kind of becoming this deal where you're going to have only at the max 4 legitimate power conferences. And it gets really tough because you can't have every team in your conference play one another. Even division-wise, that would make it extremely difficult. If you have 18 teams, are you going to have 2 9-team divisions? In which case, you're going to play 8 to 9 conference games a year, which might eliminate non-conference. So what's going to happen, to answer your question, the 12-team playoff format these next couple of years, I think they're just going to ride with it. Starting next year, the 26, I think they're just going to say, you know what, we're just going to make the best of what we can with these super conferences. We'll take the top, 4 now, because the Pac-12's gone, top 4 conference champions, give them that first-round bye, or top 4 highest-ranked conference champions, give that bye, and then give a bunch of at-larges. We'll give the pretty much 5 through 12 will be at-larges, with the exception of the highest-ranked group of 5 champion. Then going into 27, I really think there's a case to be made where you almost have individual conference playoffs. And what I mean by that is you might have a Big Ten where it's 18 teams, and you end up playing your conference slate, playing your schedule, and you take the top 8 Big Ten teams when it's all said and done, have them play a tournament to where a playoff to where you crown your Big Ten champion. And so maybe you take your Big Ten champ and your Big Ten runner-up, they go to the college football playoff, and you do that for the SEC and the ACC in the Big 12 to where you have a 8-team playoff and then a couple other at-larges. So, yeah, it's the structure is not going to change these next couple of years, but once 2027 rolls around, and Thomas, by the time 2027 rolls around, you're going to see more realignment. This isn't going to be done for the next 5 years. It's going to keep up these next couple of years. So I think you're going to actually almost have like in-season tournaments, kind of like almost like a Premier League soccer, if you're familiar with that. These in-season tournaments, or how NBA is going to do it this year. You're going to have the NBA in-season tournament, and then that's going to end up those winners go to the college football playoff to play for the whole national championship, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I guess what I hope is, I really hope they don't shut out like the teams that aren't in those Power 4 conferences, because I just think that would be horrible for the sport. And the sport is already regional enough. Like I have family all over the country, and there are pockets like in the Northeast and the West who just do not care about college football at all. So I feel like for the future of the sport, I really hope they keep it open for everybody. But I kind of agree with you. I do kind of think that the conferences are going to be almost like playing tournaments to a smaller playoff. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. What I'll start with is I agree. I hope what I really feel like we're on course to see, and this is not what you want, it's not what I want, is I feel like inevitably we are getting to the point where it's almost going to be like, right now we have the FBS level, we have the FCS level. And I feel like the FBS is about to be split into two, where you have this upper echelon of teams, your power conferences. And obviously, we're going to see some group of 5 teams join those power conferences. SMU just made that move to the ACC. I can see Tulane slipping in there, Memphis slipping into a couple teams. They'll take a few decent programs and throw them in there as power teams. And then you're going to have this bottom tier, these much smaller programs like Arkansas State, Florida International, Buffalo, maybe Fresno State, some random teams like that are decent every now and then, but nowhere near in the upper half of college football, your top 60 to 70 programs. And so it'll be like those top 70 are considered power teams, power conferences. They'll play like we do now and be crowned national champion. And then your bottom tier, it's like some of those teams I just mentioned, will also have their own season and will play for like a lower level championship in a way. And I that sounds far-fetched, but I really feel like we could be heading that direction.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Dog, I feel like a 64-team tournament would be amazing.
Oh, man.
Throwing it out there. I had this conversation with my coworkers today, like a 10-game regular season, have a March Madness style, January Madness, whatever you want to call it. I feel like that would get so much national attention, even like international attention. And like people don't even really care about college basketball, but everyone cares about March Madness. Like everybody watches that. And I just feel like the sport that's had the greatest regular season is college football. And it's just like my whole life, the postseason, it's just really fallen flat. And I hope one day that we get to see something that's kind of cool and mind blowing. But that's really all I got, man.
Hey, well, Thomas, we'll hang up here, and I'm going to address your 64-team tournament because I like what you just said. But hey, man, thank you for all your support, and thanks for calling in, man. Happy to have you as a first-time caller.
Hey, no worries, man. It's really cool. Nice to talk to you.
Absolutely, man. We'll talk to you soon. All right, our man Thomas, I love it. First-time caller, and Anthony, my guy, thank you so much, man. Thank you for showing your support through Venmo, my guy. Thank you very much. Really means a lot. And goes a very, very long way. So thank you. I like what Thomas said, though. So I think Glassman goes, no. He goes, no. And South Texas is the same thing. March Madness wouldn't work for football. Guys get injured. And you're right, they do. But guys in basketball get injured as well. We're going to hold off on calls for now. I want to readdress. So and I apologize for that. Whoever's trying to call in. I want to address the chat. I want to address what Thomas just said. I want to go back to what our man Danny was saying. So we're going to hold off on calls for now. Might open those back up here in a second, but the argument to be made, right? I get people wanting to see the 64-team tournament for college football like we do for basketball. Would it work? Probably not. It really probably wouldn't. To do that, you would obviously have to shorten your regular season by a lot. unless you started the season earlier or let it go much later, however you wanted to do it. Basketball, you can play, like March Madness, if you go on a run, you play 2 games in the span of 3 days. You might play on the opening day on Thursday night, and if you win that, you're playing again on Saturday, So, like, you can't do that in football. It's just not feasible. You can't bounce back that quickly, that fast. So it would take a lot more time. I do think you would see some upsets. People go, you wouldn't see upsets. Tulane's not going to be Alabama. Well, yeah, they could. Yeah, they could. Anything can happen on any given Saturday, right? That potential is there. We're never going to get that. We're never going to get that. We're never going to get a 64-team tournament. We're going to get a 128-team tournament, whatever you need right there. But you are getting a little bit of March Madness with a 12-team playoff. That's what we've needed for a long, long time. I have said, and we'll continue to stay by, since the playoff began back in 2014, and they said, oh, look, we've got a 14 playoff, which they only created because Alabama and LSU played for the Natty in 2012, the 2011-2012 season. Like, you can't help but wonder, like, where would we be right now if that hadn't happened? If the BCS had put Oklahoma State in the national championship against LSU, would we even have a playoff right now? Would we still have the BCS? Would we have waited longer to have a playoff? And then in turn, because we waited longer, we would have thought this through a little bit more and said, well, let's make it 8 teams. Let's make it 12 teams. Because 4 teams is nothing. Let's be honest here. 4 teams is nothing. And that has shown. You get, we've seen a lot of blowouts. We've seen a lot of lackluster games in the college football playoff, and it hasn't been fun. Make it 12 teams. Your top 4 get a bye week, well-deserved. And then you get some more representation in there. And that's the biggest thing, right? It's about representation. It's about giving teams a shot. And this is the best. And again, next Tuesday, we will be doing, based on our rankings, based on our GE top 25, we will show you what our 12-team playoff would look like, right? That's what we're going to have. And we're going to do that every week up until Selection Sunday, what a 12-team playoff would look like, which things we'll get next year. But what I'm saying is, you got this year, for example. Talk about all those good teams we just talked about. Georgia's in there, Michigan, Texas, Florida State. Give you a great example for our guy, Louise, again, who thank you again for that super chat. Florida State, let's say they lose this Saturday to Clemson. Let's say they lose. That's 1 loss, all right? And then let's say maybe they run the table the rest of the way and then play Clemson again in the ACC championship. Or let's say they lose, or they go and play somebody else, North Carolina, Miami, or somebody. Regardless, let's say Florida State ends up with 2 losses, whether that's to Clemson and then the ACC championship, Clemson and someone else in the regular season, but they did win the ACC title, whatever. The playoff system now has basically told us if you lose twice, you're out. I don't understand why that's okay, especially if you take into account, like, I'm not advocating for them necessarily, but look at Alabama last year. They lost 2 games in the regular season. 2 games in the regular season at Tennessee and LSU. And they lost them by a combined 4 points. And then they went into the Sugar Bowl and dominated Kansas State, the Big 12 champions. Alabama was a dang good football team. And I think if you put Alabama in a 12-team playoff, they would have made the Final Four, maybe even the national championship. Right? But because they had 2 losses, and because we only had a 4-team playoff, they were out. And we've seen that happen with other teams in the past. 2014, that controversy with TCU. TCU was a dang good football team. But because we didn't have a Big 12 championship or whatever, they didn't get put in as that 4th team. They didn't get in. And I know Ohio State got in there, won it all, beat Alabama, then beat Oregon. I get it. But they were a team that should have had their shot. And I like what Danny just said. South Texas, he goes, all I'm saying is Bama wouldn't have lost 65-7 to Georgia. And he's exactly right. He's exactly right. I know teams have bad games. I know some teams are on, sometimes they're off, whatever. But Bama would not have lost by 58 points in a national championship game. It wouldn't have happened. So you're never going to get a 64-team playoff just because of the amount of time that takes and because of how much you have to cut down on the regular season and all this junk there. And the fact, too, that if you do that, you let's say you cut down on the regular season, congrats, you're one of the top 64 teams. You lose, you're done. So your season really is shorted quite a bit. Like, and then your bowl games are pretty much taken out of the equation, right? Like your bowl games might still be around, but it's going to be a bunch of lower level teams that no one really wants to watch that much. Like, and that takes away money, and that's what the college football is all about, is money, which it shouldn't be, but it is just how it goes. So that won't happen. But a 12-team playoff will give us that tournament style, will give us what we deserve, and that is teams getting a fair shot at a national title. I'm not saying that the playoff system as it has now hasn't given teams a fair shot, but I think we have seen a lot of teams get slighted. I think we've seen a lot of teams get left out. I think we've seen a lot of good teams, some of which were 2-loss teams, miss out on a national championship. Alabama was a 2-loss team. They would have made a good run in a 12-team playoff. TCU would have made a good run back in 2014 at a playoff. Oregon, multiple times, has been very close, fallen short in November. I think they could have made a run in a 12-team playoff. So they have missed out on their opportunities. 12-team playoff will allow for that, especially with expansion. Top 4, Power 4, however you want to phrase it, champions go. That leaves 8 spots available, one of which is going to go to your highest ranked group of 5 team. That leaves 7 practically at-large spots available, unless they change the format of getting in, clinching tickets. But that's a lot of at-large opportunities, some of which will be 1 loss, some of which will be undefeated, some of which will be 2 loss. You really won't see many 3-loss teams in there, I don't think, unless you've got some elite teams that lose 3 games by a combined 5-6 points. Then you can make a case they get in. But this is a good system that I hope the NCAA and the playoff committee doesn't butcher like they do with everything else. It's one of those things, that you hear about the Midas touch, right? Everything you touch turns to gold. Everything that the NCAA and the playoff committee touches just dies. It just shrivels up, and dies. And they ruin it. And I really pray that they don't do that with this. So great question and comments, Thomas. Thank you again for calling in. I probably stayed on that a little too long, but I'm a major advocate for playoff expansion. I'm a major advocate for getting more parity in college football. And I think that the expanded playoff will do that. It's just very interesting to see how it will be handled with all the realignment, like you mentioned. So great question and comment. And I see a lot of people talking about that now in the chat, right? So let's see. We'll touch on that, and then we'll scroll back up. So Ray says, we'll take a handful of more calls here in a second. Don't worry, we will. I promise. We have maybe two calls left in us or something like that. So we'll get to it. But Ray says, wouldn't it be easier to take the top 6 ranked Power 5 teams and then the top ranked non-Power 5 team, match them against each other in the 12-man playoff? Wouldn't that make more sense? Right. I guess I'm misunderstanding. So you wouldn't take the top 6 ranked Power 5. You take the top 5 Power 5 as it stands now, plus a top ranked group of 5. So you'd have 6. And then you would have 6 at-larges, unless I'm missing what you're saying. That's kind of what I don't know if that's exactly it. Let's see here. Stone Thomas. I think the best aspect of the 64 team is that the regular season is even more important because seeding would matter tremendously. Yeah, and that's just another good point, too, with home field. I wasn't even thinking about that. 12-team playoff, you're going to have home field advantage for those opening rounds. So that's a huge perk, too. It's congrats, you made it in as a 12 seed or an 11 seed. You have your shot at a national championship, but your reward of getting there is now you've got to go to Ohio State. You've got to go to Alabama. You've got to go to Michigan. You don't get that home field advantage. Seeding will matter tremendously. In a 64-team tournament, yeah, it would matter tremendously. But again, we play from late August to late November now. That's what we do. We have a 12-week, 12-game season. If college football still wanted to have 64, 32, 16, 8, 4 national championship, that's about 6 weeks. So, you're looking at maybe playing – 7 games, 7, 8 games, say 6 games, conference championship week, then playoff. That's 13 weeks right there. And then you could take the teams that don't make the 64-team tournament, put them in some bowl games if you want, but the bowl games wouldn't really mean much. Bowl games definitely wouldn't mean anything at that point. So it's in doing so, you shorten that regular season, and people aren't going to want to do that because it would take away money. It would really limit matchups because, especially with these super conferences now, you go to the 18-team Big Ten and say, all right, guys, you're playing 6 games this year, all of which would have to be conference games. You would eliminate non-conference games. You'd have to. And be like, all right, so you're going to play 6 conference games and that's it. And then we'll base the standings off of that. The top 2 teams will go to the championship game of the conference. They'll play. Winner automatically goes to the 64-team tournament. There you go. Runner-up probably gets into because they're clearly good enough. And then you do that for the 4 conferences. That's only 8 teams. That's a lot of teams left. And I mean, the majority, what we're saying, 64-team tournament, we're talking about roughly half of college football getting in to this thing. And that's another thing, too, people would be upset about is, yeah, you have a lot of lopsided games. Yeah, you'd have a lot of this and that, the other. With the NCAA tournament, you've got 64, 68 teams that make it. That sounds like a lot, but there are way more college basketball programs that are like eligible and at the correct level to play for the NCAA tournament than there are in college football. A lot of other college football programs, but you got a lot of those at the FCS level. We have a lot of FCS teams in football that in basketball are eligible for the NCAA tournament. It's kind of just weird how it's structured, right? So that plays a role too. So I don't know. It's very intricate concept, but I get what you're saying there. He continues with 10 regular season games, 6 games to win. So until you, stole my thunder there. He kind of solved the timing of it, I guess, the length of the season. And you could maybe make the argument that you do 10 regular season games, but what would that put us at? I mean, I guess 10 regular season games plus conference championships would have you done around mid-November, and then 6 would have you done about late December, early January. So, yeah, you could swing it. You could swing it if they wanted to. I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. That's the thing. I don't want you to think I'm opposed to it. I'm really not. I'm not entirely opposed. But I just don't think it's ever going to happen. Let's see. Yeah, Thomas has got it figured out. If I'm reading his comments, he's got it down. I like it. Yeah. Here's what you do, Thomas. Here's what you need to do. You need to make a PowerPoint, and I think we could maybe make your PowerPoint, and we'll just have a whole stream, like a whole playoff stream, right? Like dedicated to like what a 12-team tournament would look like now. We'll bring you on the show. We'll have you come in, present your thing. It's almost like a class presentation. Anybody that wants to come pitch their playoff ideas, we'll just have you on the show because I think we can do that through StreamYard. I think we can just call people and have it like visually on here. So maybe that's what we need to do. You make your PowerPoint, come in, pitch it. We all clap, we vote. Next guy comes in, and at the end, it's like, all right, this is the way we're going to go. I think that'd be pretty fun. So that sounds great. Anthony said, check your earlier comment. Let me see. Where is your earlier comment? Which earlier comment is that? Because there were a lot. Remind me which one it is, Anthony. I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to address. There's a couple up there. So let me know, and then I'll address it. I got you. Let me see here. There's one other comment I wanted to address regarding the playoff, and I was going to wrap back up. Go back up to the top. Where was it? Yeah, the last one. Likely FCS team to jump via realignment. I think the obvious answer is North Dakota State. I think South Dakota State can make the jump. I think Central Arkansas, UCA, could make the jump to – UCA would make the jump to like Sun Belt level, Sun Belt Conference USA level, but could make that jump. The biggest ones are North Dakota State and South Dakota State. I mean, those have been perennial FCS powers for a very, very long time. North Dakota State has proven they can hang with some of the best in college football. We've seen them pull off multiple upsets at the FBS level, or have come very close to doing so. They beat Kansas State years ago. They beat Iowa at Kinnick a few years ago. Nearly took down Arizona last year. I'm sure there's a couple more that I'm missing as well. So North Dakota State is absolutely the real deal. South Dakota State is the real deal. Those are the top two. UCA is a perennial top 25 team, and geographically would make sense in a Conference USA Sun Belt area, especially with teams like Sam Houston and Jacksonville State making that jump to the Conference USA. So I can definitely see that. I say those are my top 3 FCS teams to make the jump. I know there's a handful of others that are speculating. There's speculation that they might end up leaving their respective conference in the FCS and making the jump to the FBS. But then again, it's like, what is the point of that? I mean, I want to see these teams at this next level 100%, but what will that do for them with the way college football is lining up right now? With the way realignment is structured right now, how does that happen? How does that work? Power 5, Power 4 is the way it is. And again, like we were talking with Thomas earlier, you get Power 4 the way it is, where the Power 4 consists of over 60 to 70 teams in college football. Yes, these other programs absolutely matter. Their games matter. Their conferences matter. But what are they playing for? Other than the one team at that level that will slip into the 12-team playoff when that time comes. What are they playing for? Yeah, they're playing for pride. They're playing for conference championships. They're playing for bowl games. But if we expand the playoffs too big, bowl games could become irrelevant and not necessary. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested to see how it all is structured. Let's see. Did he say something on Venmo? I thought. Wait, hold on. I know you sent a Venmo, Anthony. Unless I missed something here. Am I that far behind? Let me see. Yeah, I knew you would send a Venmo. I guess I thought. I appreciate you sending it over. I thought I had addressed that. Making sure I'm not missing it here. Oh, we're looking at Oregon State, USC. No, I got your Venmo alert, Anthony, and I really, I know I addressed it earlier in the chat or earlier in the stream, but I appreciate you and your support, man. Really, thank you for sending that one over. Unless I'm missing, unless you said something in the chat about Venmo that I'm missing, I do appreciate you sending that on over. And like I said, it goes a long way. Venmo, PayPal, Expert Picks, Super Chat, whatever it is, all of it is a huge, huge boost for us. And we really, really appreciate that. So thank you again for sending that one over to us on the thing. I didn't see it. See a sports commentator. I didn't see that. I must be blind. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I mean, I'm sorry. Thank you for the Venmo. First off, my favorite sports commentator. I'm going to answer that now. Jeez, man, I apologize. Again, thank you. Man, that's tough. I've got a couple, all right? I got a couple. I really like, this is, I think, kind of a cop-out, but I really like Gus Johnson. I don't know many people that don't like Gus Johnson. I had the honor of meeting him a couple of years ago. I was up in the press box for a game and was covering a game, and he was it was Arkansas State and Kansas State back when I was still in college, and went to Manhattan, went up there and met Gus. Got a picture with him. It was great. It was great. He's awesome. He's fun to listen to. He's one of those guys that he's extremely professional, but he's also not. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But you don't just the screaming, the shouting, the random words. It's stuff that we as fans do when something big happens. And I think there are so many commentators that try to keep the stoic, unbiased. And Gus Johnson's not biased when he calls a game, but the stoic, unbiased, I've got to be professional look. And Gus is just like, dude, I'm going to let it loose. If something crazy happens or something exciting happens, I'm letting loose. And it's more fun for us that get to sit at home and listen to him and watch him. So, and that he's done that for football. He's done that for basketball. I mean, everything he's covered. He's just so entertaining. So Gus is up there for sure. I've always been a fan of, was always a fan of Joe Tessitore. He just seems, great voice, a lot of fun. He's exciting. I would definitely put Joe up there as one of mine. Chris Fowler is great. Talking about a great voice as well. He's one of the faces of college football, I think, especially from a commentator standpoint. Always covering one of the top games of the week, right? I mean, it's always one of the top games of the week is Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, right? So they're a great team, a great duo. So I would put him up there as well. That's probably my top 3 is Gus, Gus, Joe Johnson, Joe Tessitore, and Chris Fowler. Those are some great ones in my eyes. I really, really like every single one of them, and they are really, really good at what they do. But Gus, I mean, you just can't beat him. You just can't beat him. We need more Gus Johnson. Yeah, he's great. Great question, Anthony, and thank you again for the Venmo. I really, really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. You know what we'll do is, this thing is kind of blowing up here. College football guy, I know we said we were going to reopen the phone line. We've got a lot left to address in the chat, and I know we're running a little short on time. We've already gone for almost an hour and a half. It's crazy. I want to, and I had a couple other things I wanted to address as well. So we'll cut off the phones for now. We'll take some more next week. So college football guy, come back next week. We'll make sure to get you on, along with Mitch, who wasn't here tonight either, and anybody else that wants to call in. So we apologize for that, but I want to get to some of these questions here and some of the things that I had listed, but y'all do a good job getting me off topic. It's kind of like a student trying to get the teacher off topic. You'll do a hell of a job of that. But don't worry. Please call back. I apologize for that. We'll definitely get you next week. 100%. 100%. All right. So Ben Wyndham, good to see you. I think we addressed that earlier, but Ben, nice to have you here. R1, what are my predictions for Notre Dame, Ohio State? Check tomorrow, my guy. Check tomorrow. We have our Notre Dame, Ohio State prediction video coming out, and we'll address that in a second. So, but that's actually one of the things I want to talk about. But tomorrow we will have a full video out for Notre Dame, Ohio State. Do not miss out on that. Ray, do I think the Pac-12 will turn cannibal on itself as it's the last year for the Pac-12? Yeah, we talked about that last week, and they probably are, unfortunately. And that's another thing, another reason I wish the playoff had expanded this year, right? Imagine how many Pac-12 teams we could see in a 12-team playoff. Like, you'd get the champion in there, whether that's USC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, whoever it may be. But all those other teams I just mentioned that don't win it probably would find their way in too. And that's the dang shame, right? So many good teams in the Pac-12. Oregon State, Washington State, Colorado as of now. They're all in this mix. And I mean, they're just going to beat up on each other. And that's the thing, right? One of those teams, like say Washington loses 2 games this year. Well, they're not going to the playoff. They're not making the national championship. They could lose 2 games, win the Pac-12, and they're not going to the college football playoff to have their shot at a national championship because the playoff is too small. But you have a 12-team playoff. They lose 2 games, win the Pac-12 championship. They are making it as one of those top 12 teams. And I think one of the top quarterbacks in the country with one of the best offenses in the country, whose 2 losses might come to, USC and Oregon State by a combined 10 points. They should have their shot at a natty. But with this setup, they don't get it. So, yeah, unfortunately, they are going to turn cannibalistic on each other. They're going to eat each other alive. You might be lucky to get one Pac-12 team still alive at the end of the year in the hunt for the college football playoff, and who that is remains to be seen because we have so many big games left. I mean, this week is massive for the Pac-12, right? It's massive. You got Washington State and Oregon State. You got Oregon and Colorado. You got Utah and UCLA. And don't disrespect UCLA either. They are in the mix as well. I mean, we got like 8 teams. 8 teams in the Pac-12 are in the top 25. I mean, it's unreal. And the ones that aren't are what? Arizona State, Cal, Stanford, somebody else I'm blanking on. It's not in the top 25. That I'm sure will come to me in time. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty surreal. But unfortunately, yeah, they're going to destroy each other. Let's see who else we got here. We'll touch on Notre Dame, Ohio State tomorrow, maybe a few more later tonight. Hey, college football guy, I appreciate you. Yeah, we'll definitely catch you next week. Next week's going to be a fun week, getting to recap Arizona. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, Arizona. That's it. We'll have a lot to talk about after what we see this Saturday and bringing the 12-team playoff back into the fold and everything else. Josh Swinton, good to see you. TCU or SMU? I don't mind sharing that pick because that's not one of our games of the week. Probably TCU. Although it'll be close. TCU, but it's close. Lakers Dude 7. Good to see you, my guy. Nice to have you here. Always going strong, baby. We don't stop. I don't sleep. I literally do not sleep, man. I think I average like 4 hours a night, if that. Like we are working 24/7, baby, pretty much. Or I guess it'd be like 20 20 hours, 7 days a week. I mean, we just go to town. So good to see you, man. Thanks for being here. College football guy, what was one question you wanted to ask? Who impressed me the most and disappointed me the most in week 3? That's a fantastic question. I like that a lot. Oh, man. Golly, that's a good question. I probably have more disappointments than I do impressions, because I think a lot of teams really failed to impress, especially top 25 wise, really failed to impress in week 3. I was very disappointed with Arkansas. That was a bad. So maybe impressed by BYU, disappointed by Arkansas. Really thought that Arkansas would beat BYU, and they failed to do so, obviously, and really failed to do so from just incompetent coaching decisions. I think Sam Pittman's honeymoon in Fayetteville is running out. That will be more so the case after this Saturday when LSU just beats the brakes off of Arkansas. And we'll get to that in a second. Chris, good to see you. But, again, like we mentioned earlier, I mean, horrible punts, going forward on 4th and 1 out of shotgun at the 50. KJ Jefferson playing timid, a crap ton of penalties. I mean, Arkansas should have won that game, and instead their season is now over because of the loss to BYU. So that was really disappointing. I felt like Colorado, not to diss them, was relatively disappointing. I really thought with game day being there, with all the talk all week about making it personal against Colorado State, I thought the Buffaloes was going to go out there and torch the Rams, and they didn't. Win's a win. Got the win. They're 3-0. They're still ranked. Massive game against Oregon, which is going to be fun to watch. But that was a little bit discouraging, unfortunate to see, I guess. I really was expecting a big win. I'm sure most Buffalo fans were. Boston College, give them credit. I think, who was that? Was that Lakers dude? Yeah. BC was impressive. They were impressive taking Florida State down to the wire. South Carolina was impressive taking Georgia down to the wire. I know they lost the game. I know BC lost the game, but to go in to Athens, lead that game 14-3 at half, that's no small feat. That's a very impressive thing to do. And I think it showed what the South Carolina team is capable of despite losing. Obviously, Georgia from start to finish was the better team. We knew they were going to come back. We knew they were probably going to come back and win that game. They did. But South Carolina hanging with them gave me a lot of confidence and faith in what we could see the rest of the year from Shane Beamer's squad. So that was an impression for sure. Trying to go through the teams in my head and trying to just remember who else we got in there. Notre Dame disappointed me, if I'm being honest with you. That sounds kind of weird. They were probably overlooking Central Michigan in preparation for Ohio State. I could see that, but Central Michigan came in with one of the worst secondaries in the country. And Sam Hartman had a good game. They still dropped 41 points, but really didn't play the way I thought they would, win the way I thought they would. Allowing 17 points to a Central Michigan team with a backup quarterback, that was disappointing. But again, a win to win. I think they were just, Notre Dame was just looking to get out of there healthy to prepare for Ohio State. So handful of teams in there from a week that was very entertaining, more entertaining than we thought it would be, but also a week that, again, featured a lot of lackluster performances from some of the nation's top teams. So good question there. Running down to the rest of the chat here. Hey, Steven, good to see you, my guy. Nice to have you here, Steven. Happy you're here, man. Appreciate you and all the support. Chris, thoughts on LSU and Arkansas? We'll do that one, sure. Arkansas will probably get the break speed off of them. I think LSU at night in Death Valley, I just don't see Arkansas standing a chance. And here's why I don't see Arkansas standing a chance as much as I want them to. As much as I'd love to see a great battle for the Golden Boot in Arkansas, maybe pull off the upset or make it a competitive game, I think Sam Pittman has lost his team. And that's, people would disagree with me on that. They would argue me on that. I would disagree. This is an Arkansas team that simply does not care. You can see it in the body language. You can see it in the effort. They just don't want it. And I don't remember who I was talking to in the comment section last week. I said, if Arkansas were to lose to BYU before the game happened, the season's done for. And everybody disagreed with me. And it's not, I'm not wrong on that. I mean, look at what happened last year when Arkansas fell to A&M. We talked about this on the stream before. They lost to A&M in a game they definitely should have won. They lost that game due to a bunch of terrible play calls and mistakes, and it derailed their season. They lost to A&M, and they lost to Alabama, then they lost to Mississippi State, then they later on lost to Liberty, and everything unraveled after that point. Same thing happened back in 2021. Arkansas got off this great start, got the break speed off them against Georgia. That was to be expected. I think the team still kind of had this camaraderie, was still okay when they lost that heartbreaker to Ole Miss the week after, one that came down to the final play on the 2-point conversion. Everything unraveled after that. Arkansas is not a mentally tough team, and that's why they will fail in Death Valley on Saturday. They're not mentally tough. They're not mentally prepared to take on LSU at home at night against an LSU team that has national title aspirations and looked amazing against Mississippi State, albeit a Mississippi State team that's not very good. I just don't see any way Arkansas hangs in this game. The offensive line is atrocious. They have no ground game whatsoever. Anthony, you make a great point. Quinshon Judkins and Rocket Sanders have been very disappointing and irrelevant because Rocket's been hurt. And they kept trying to brush it off like, oh, it's not a big deal. He's not that hurt. He's more hurt than they want to realize, and he's probably not going to play against LSU. Problem is, it wouldn't even matter if he did play. Arkansas's offensive line can't create enough lanes for their running backs to go through, so even if Rocket played, it wouldn't make that big of a difference for the Hawks. KJ Jefferson's playing timid. Dan Enos won't let him air it out. They choose to run, try to convert a 4th and 1 out of shotgun. Look, I'm sorry, but when you have incompetent play callers, when you have an incompetent staff, it's not too hard to lose every game, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. LSU owns a significant advantage in every aspect of this game, including home field advantage, including coaching. And again, as much as I'd love to see Arkansas make this a game and bounce back in a big way, the players do not care. They mentally do not care. They're mentally not in their right headspace, and they'll lose to LSU. And they probably will lose their next 4 games. They play LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama, all away from home, A&M being played in Dallas. That's going to be a 2-5 start for Arkansas unless a miracle happens for them. And once they hit 2-5, they're not bouncing back from that either. And again, the honeymoon is over. Everybody loves Sam Pittman. Good old country boy that loved the program. And look what he's done now. He's running that program right back into the ground with incompetence. And no one else will say it, but it's the truth. So thoughts on LSU Arkansas? Starts off slow. Actually, I take that back. I think LSU marches the ball down the field in the opening drive. Whether they start the game with the ball or whether they get it after Arkansas inevitably goes 3 and out, LSU will move the ball like that, and they'll set the tone early. And that's the thing Arkansas has to do, right? Arkansas, in a game like this, needs to find a way to set the tone early. They won't do it. They can't do it. They are incapable of doing it. And this Razorbacks team is not built to come from behind. They are mentally not prepared to come from behind. So as soon as LSU gets up 10 points, 14 points, whatever it is, if you're watching the game, go ahead and turn it off, unless you're an LSU fan, because it'll be over. Once Arkansas gets down 10-14, they're done for. So don't know if that answers your question, Chris. I also can't tell. I can't tell if you're an LSU or Arkansas fan. I think you're an Arkansas fan, maybe from the last time you were on a stream. I'm not entirely sure. So I don't mean to be too harsh on your team here. It's just fact of the matter. It's just Arkansas. The problem, Arkansas has the talent, man. The talent is there. Veteran quarterback, solid wide receiver core, solid running back core. Defense is playing out of their mind. The defense was not the reason Arkansas lost to BYU. Arkansas outgained BYU by over 150 yards. The defense played great. So the talent is there. And as I've talked to so many people, when all the talent is there and you're still losing, what's the issue? It's coaching. And that is what's going to be the downfall for Arkansas this year and send them back into this horrible, horrible space that they work so hard to get themselves out of. Let's see here. Who do I see being the dominant quarterback in Oregon, Colorado? And what is your honest opinion on both quarterbacks' gameplay? Ray, I think Bo Nix is probably going to have a bigger day. I think because Colorado's defense just isn't good. It just really isn't that good. So I think Bo Nix is going to go up there and kind of have one of those stat padding days. But Shadur Sanders is the real deal. Like, he is phenomenal. And Oregon, Oregon did a decent job. Here's the thing. Oregon has been battle tested a little bit more than Colorado has. And someone say, how's the case? Colorado's played 2 Power 5 opponents. Oregon faced Texas Tech, who offensively is relatively similar to Colorado. Tyler Shuck's phenomenal. They are fast-paced. They move the ball. They love to air it out. So Oregon's already seen that, and they had to see that offense and face it and beat it on the road. Now they get them in Eugene. So Oregon kind of knows what to expect style-wise from Colorado. They have faced an elite passer, an elite passing team already. Honest opinion on both quarterbacks' gameplay, I think they're great. I think I'd like to see Shedeur Sanders run the ball a little bit more. I think he has that capability to maybe escape the pocket and run. But, I mean, he has been phenomenal at this level. He's been accurate. He's got a great deep ball. I really, really do enjoy watching him play. And same for Bo Nix. Both of them are legitimate Heisman Trophy contenders. He's got a great ball. He has seen a resurgence in his career after an up and down couple of years at Auburn. Great bounce back for him at Oregon. Even now, he's doing great despite the loss of Kenny Dillingham, who's now at Arizona State. So, love what they're doing. I think Oregon has the better quarterback in this game. He's got the more experienced one, the one who was nearly a Heisman finalist last year, was phenomenal last year, more mobile. Oregon's going to get the job done probably. Bo Nix is probably going to outplay Shedeur Sanders, but Sanders is probably going to have himself a good day because Oregon's defense isn't phenomenal. It's better than Colorado's, but it's still not elite. Good question. Thoughts on Michigan, Rutgers, Auburn A&M? Rutgers plays Michigan closer than people think. Rutgers played, what was it, 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago where Rutgers was within like 7 points of Michigan at one point. Or maybe they were down like 17. I don't know what the score was. But like Rutgers battled back and made it a game, right? In the big house. So I would not sleep on Rutgers. I don't think they're going to pull off the upset over Michigan by any means. But this Rutgers team is buying into what Greg Schiano is selling. They are believing. They're 3-0, and they're not 3-0 beating up on cupcake teams, right? They beat Virginia Tech. They're a Power 5 opponent. They beat Temple in dominating fashion, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But when you realize that Rutgers struggled against Temple last year, it is a big deal. Beat them 36-7. The defense is the real deal. Gavin Wimsatt is the real deal. I like the Rutgers team a lot. So I think they play Michigan a little bit closer than people think. Auburn A&M, it's a weird game because typically the road team fares better in this series than the home team. If you go back and look at recent trends, typically the road team has won this game. But I do think A&M beats Auburn. Auburn was very, very fortunate to survive against California on the road. They're 3-0. Both teams are 3-0. Or excuse me, Auburn's 3-0. A&M, a one-loss team now, the loss to Miami. But A&M from top to bottom to me is the better team. They've got home field advantage. That's going to play a very big role here. It's probably going to be close. But Auburn has not seen a team like A&M all year long. And again, they should have lost to Cal. And if they had, I wonder how people would be talking about the Tigers. So, good question. Both solid, under the radar games. Let's see. Anthony says he bets Iowa covers against Penn State. Interesting there. Possibly. I don't know. Whiteout game, though, guys. It's the whiteout game. That has an effect on the opposing teams, but an effect on Penn State. They show up and show out. They've won, I think, 3 straight whiteout games and 5 of the last 6, and the only one they lost was that 1-point loss to Ohio State where James Franklin called the draw on 4th and 5. One of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life. So it's going to be a fun matchup. But Penn State owns the edge just about everywhere there. I mean, really, the defense is great. The offense definitely owns the edge over Iowa. They've got home field advantage. So Penn State wins, but can they cover 14.5 now? I think it's gotten up to 14.5. Don't like the hook. Definitely don't like that hook. So proceed with caution. Louise says, who's my team? You just went on Arkansas. Yeah, I was at that BYU game on Saturday. I'm going to be in Dallas next week for the Southwest Classic. So if anybody's going to be in the Arlington, Dallas area next Saturday, hit me up. I'm going to be down there to watch Arkansas probably inevitably lose to A&M. But you know what? I'm going to be happy to be there because I get to enjoy the Dallas nightlife, and that's what I'm really there for. And then I'm going to the Cowboys and Patriots game the very next day for, why not? Go check it out. I went on Arkansas because no one else will. The fan base is too optimistic. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't know. College football guy, good to see you, man. Thank you for popping in. We will catch you next week. Catch you in some other videos, but next week for sure. And we'll make sure to take your call then for sure. Enjoy week 4. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy it. It's going to be a heck of a week, and we will definitely catch you next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Major shout out to my guy, Ty Halper. And thank you, my man. Thank you so much for that super chat. Again, all of you guys for the super chat. Everybody goes a long way. All of you here. We've had 5 tonight, plus Anthony's through Venmo. Thank you again for that. But yeah, thank you. What's more likely, 2 Pac-12 teams in the college football playoff or no SEC teams? Ooh, Ty, bringing the heat, bringing a good question. Ty, I'm gonna say that I'm almost gonna say no. I'm going to say no SEC teams. I think that might be more likely than getting 2 Pac-12 teams in there. Getting 2 Pac-12 teams in is going to be really, really tough. I mean, because of what we just talked about earlier about how they just eat themselves alive. You know, like, go look at, I don't have the schedules put up in front of me, but so many teams are just going to beat up on each other. Like I mentioned, Oregon still has to play Washington, Utah, USC, Colorado. I mean, they're playing all the big dogs, right? I mean, and Oregon's not winning all those games, but they're going to win a few. So when Oregon takes a couple losses and they beat a few of those other guys, it's going to shake them. Like, it's going to be very hard to get 2 Pac-12 teams in there, because what that's going to mean is it's basically saying we're going to put both Pac-12 championship representatives in the playoff, or we're going to take the champion of the Pac-12 and then one team that just barely missed out. Like, what really the way you would have to get 2 Pac-12 teams in there would be like having a 1-loss or undefeated Pac-12 champion, and then having a team in 3rd place of the Pac-12 as a 1-loss team that gets in. Or you have a battle between 2 undefeated Pac-12 teams in the Pac-12 championship, or however you want to phrase it. It's just really, really tough. Versus the SEC, like we talked about last week, the SEC West is wide open right now. Alabama already has a loss. LSU already has a loss. A&M already has a loss. Ole Miss is not running the table. Arkansas is already out. Mississippi State's already out. Neither of them are contenders anyways. So the West is like one more loss for Alabama or LSU or A&M or whoever, and they're out of the question, right? And you can guarantee, we're already guaranteed that Alabama or LSU is taking another loss because they have to play each other. Like, I don't know if a team out of the SEC West is going to get in unless LSU or Alabama just runs the table the rest of the way. And that would include an SEC championship win over someone maybe like Georgia, who, for them to get in, could get in as a 1-loss team maybe, but their non-conference strength of schedule could come back to bite them. Struggling against inferior opponents like they did against South Carolina could come back to bite them. And if Georgia slips up, let's say they slip up to Tennessee, who already has lost to Florida. Tennessee is not running the table the rest of the way. Like, if you know, I think it's more likely to maybe see a 1-loss Georgia team in the SEC championship play a 2-loss Alabama or LSU, kind of like we saw last year. That 2-loss West team beats Georgia, which means everybody in the SEC, including the champion and the runner-up, has at least 2 losses, and the committee's like, we can't put them in. That, to me, is more likely than getting 2 Pac-12 teams in, despite how strong the Pac-12 is. So, crazy to think about. Crazy to even consider that being a possibility. But it is, and it really, really is. And again, that goes full circle back to the playoff talk. None of this would be an issue if we had an expanded playoff right now. If you had your 64, if you had your 12, whatever it needed to be, you had a 12-team playoff. You could get both those SEC teams in there, and you wouldn't get just 2 Pac-12 teams in there. I think you could get up to 4. I think a full third of the 12-team playoff could be Pac-12 teams by the end of the year if we had that this year. That's how good this conference is. That's how good these teams are. And it's just a really, 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 it's a shame that it wasn't in place this year. It could have been. It could not that you change it mid-season, because that would be unfair, but same wait so long to get these teams in there. Same we had to wait so long to get an expanded playoff in. You didn't have to wait. You didn't have to wait. It's all about money. It's all about just purposely. It's a bunch of crap, but it is what it is. Ty, thank you. Great question. We will be revisiting this multiple times throughout the next few weeks, I have no doubt. And thank you very much again for the super chat. I genuinely appreciate that. Last 2 questions here, and I guess we'll wrap things up. Coming up on 2 hours. It just has flown by. Duncan what are my thoughts on the direction of Virginia Tech as a program? They seem to be worse this year. I don't see a path for major improvement. Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Obviously not good, right? And Duncan, I'm sure you're concerned like I am that this week against Marshall is not a foregone conclusion. It's not a lock as a win that maybe it had been in years past. There's a very good chance they lose to Marshall. So they've now lost to Purdue at home. They got the brakes beaten off of them against Rutgers. They very well could lose to Marshall. So what would that be? 1-3 start? It's obviously a dark period for this program, a very proud program. They need a leader in the locker room, and they don't really have that. Justin Fuente. I mean, when you take a guy like Beamer, who has been there for 30-something years, I mean, something forever, and when you lose a legend like that, it's hard to fill the shoes of a legend. And they kind of tried to do that with Justin Fuente. Didn't pan out. Started off strong, fell apart. And you got Brent Pry in there. He's not the answer either. And I don't like jumping to that conclusion so early. He hasn't even completed 2 full years, but last year was really, really bad. This year is already off to a bad start. If they lose to Marshall, it's going to be even worse. And they haven't even gotten into the bulk of ACC play, and they're about to play some really good teams in conference play. So I think the direction is this. What they have to do is they're going to have to hire a true leader in there. They're going to have to hire a young guy in there, a guy that knows how to recruit, a guy that knows how to utilize the transfer portal. Because, again, I'm not against utilizing the transfer portal. I'm against the concept and how it's structured as of now. I think there needs to be regulations. I think there needs to be limits. I believe that to be the case with the transfer portal. I believe that to be the case with NIL deals. But it is part of the game. It is the way it is, and that's the way that college football is heading. And so you need to hire someone that knows how to utilize that. Virginia Tech also has to become innovative on offense. The offense has been terrible these last few years. Brent Pry was defensive-minded. Fuente was more offensive-minded. Hasn't panned out across the board. The reason they're struggling is because the defense hasn't been great. I think the defense can get there, but the offense the last few years has been really, really bad. And when your offense is that bad and you're putting your defense out there that quick and that often, you can't even blame them for struggling. They're worn out. They're not getting a break. They're not getting help. They're not getting sustained drives. They're not getting a cushion. That's why. So I think leadership change is inevitable. I think offensive change needs to happen. And Virginia Tech's going to have to, like many teams, are going to have to load up on transfers. I know they try with some, bringing in Drones, bringing in Wells, bringing in a handful of others. Not every team's going to get immediate success in the transfer portal like Colorado has seen this year, at least the first 3 weeks. But obviously, as a direction of the program, it's not looking good. They're not going to turn the ship around this year. They're not going to magically go from 1-2 and go to 6, 7, 8 wins this year, especially not with tough games coming up in conference play. It's just not happening. So it looks to be another losing season for Virginia Tech. And that's the problem too, right? Virginia Tech for years was expected to contend for national titles or anything, but for them it was no losing seasons. Let's get to a bowl game. Let's try to win that bowl game. And heck, if we play for an ACC title, if we're in the hunt for it, awesome. Beamer had them doing that. And then Fuente came along and kind of kept up that tradition for a little while. Wasn't his first year. He went to the ACC title game and lost to Clemson. Had them doing it. But when Virginia Tech, for the first time in 30, 40, whatever many seasons have been, took that first losing season or first year they didn't go bowling, and it has just kept up, that was kind of the beginning of the end. They will come back. They will get back. Just like I believe every program that goes through a very dark period will find their way back. But they need major change in direction, major change in leadership, major change in mindset, and that might take a little while to get, unfortunately. So, great question, though. Great. I like talking some Hokie ball, man. I really do like talking Virginia Tech. Our man Hunter Shin, haven't seen him in a while, but Hunter's a great guy, big Virginia Tech fan, always has a good insight, and he has created a soft spot in me for Virginia Tech. I want them to do well. Never had anything against them, and I always enjoyed seeing them do well. So, appreciate you, Duncan. Thank you for the question. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate that. And he says if there was only a young and rising coach who just happened to be the son of the most legendary figure in program history, too bad they let him head to Columbia. Yeah, it is a shame. And you can't help but wonder, too, Duncan, I don't know if Shane Beamer would ever be willing to leave the SEC for Virginia Tech, but I do believe there was a small part in him that in the back of his mind would think, man, if they came a knocking, if I keep winning at South Carolina and doing good things at South Carolina, if Virginia Tech came over and said, would you like to follow in your father's footsteps, where the majority of the people in that city and around that fan base probably like me enough already. Like, some would say it's a downgrade. It's a downgrade conference-wise. Going from the SEC to the ACC, yeah, it would be. But from a tradition and pageantry and history-wise, I wouldn't say it's a downgrade. And I think that's probably a part of Shane Beamer that's probably thinking, man, that'd be really cool to do. I know I would think that way if I was in that position. So I wouldn't rule that out to see Virginia Tech maybe throw anything they've got at them to say, hey, we want you. Please come back. Follow in your father's footsteps. We need another Beamer. That would be pretty special. So I agree with you on that. And I wouldn't rule out that as a possibility in the next couple of years, assuming Beamer continues to win. If he starts struggling at Carolina, I don't think Tech fans would want him. But I could be wrong. Doggy says it would be the biggest stain in the 80-year history of the SEC if they failed to get to the playoff. I 100% agree. It's one thing not to win a national championship. It'd be another thing to not make the playoff entirely. But you know what? The SEC this year is down. Let's be honest. They have struggled in non-conference in the first 3 weeks of the year. They have struggled. They have not had one team look dominant. Georgia is the number one team in the country. They haven't really looked all that great. I think they will maybe slip up somewhere in the regular season. It's possible. And if they don't, I don't know if they have the pieces necessary to three-peat. I don't know if they could go on to the playoff and take down an Ohio State, a Michigan, a Florida State, a Texas. I don't know if they could do that. I really don't. So, yeah, the SEC is down this year, and it's kind of a weird sight to see. Great point. And, yeah, imagine the memes that would come of that. Everybody, a lot of people hate the SEC because it just means more and this and that. And if they fail to get a team in the four-team playoff, whew, yeah, it'd be rough. Last thing here, Mr. Glassman says, I'm going to game day on Saturday, and I'm hoping Corso puts on the leprechaun hat. You and me both. I'll leave you with this. I got really emotional. I don't know how many of you guys watched College Game Day this last Saturday. Really emotional. Corso's 400th headgear pick. They had a big tribute for him. He got emotional, gave a big speech. Kirk got emotional. Kirk and him are like father and son. And, they're up there and they said, hey, we love round numbers. Congrats on 400 and here's on the road to 500. And he goes, I'm never going to make it. And he said it with a laugh like he was joking. But unfortunately, I think we all know it to be true. Like, Corso his health is deteriorating. His age is getting the best of him. I don't know if he has. You think headgear picks another 100 headgear picks. He'll get probably 10 or so more in this year. You're looking at 90 more. That's a lot of seasons left. He's not going to get there, unfortunately. And there's rumors circulating behind the scenes this could be the last year of Lee Corso on College Game Day. And whenever his last year on game day is, whenever he makes that last headgear pick, whether they let us know about it or not, it will be a very, very, very sad day. I think he's been a very big part of all of our mornings for so many years. He really has been, for what it's worth, a good analyst. He's been a great person. He's been entertaining. He's been fun. And honestly, I hope he puts on the leprechaun hat too. I would love to see that. I don't know, man. He might go against it's hard for him to go against Brutus. I know he's got that soft spot for Brutus, but that would be pretty sick to see him do that, especially in South Bend. I hate losing him. I hate that we know the end is near, whenever that may be, whether it's this year, next year, the year after. Our time with Corso is running out, so I think the best thing we can do is just every Saturday morning get up and cherish it and enjoy it for as long as we can, because he is an iconic figure and always will be. And generally, there won't be anybody like him. I think they kind of brought in Pat McAfee to kind of become that new, somewhat comedic relief, to become this analyst that could kind of match Corso's vibe a little bit. I believe that was their intention of bringing him on to College Game Day. But even if McAfee tries to continue the headgear pick, or maybe tries to do his own spin-off thing to make his thing, it'll just never be the same. We'll get used to it. We'll enjoy it. We'll like it. But nothing will ever top Lee Corso. Nothing will ever top those headgear picks. And it's a sad day knowing that slowly but surely coming to an end. But that's awesome. You're going to game day. That's been on my bucket list for years, is just to be at a game day, whether it was at my team's place or just anywhere else. Hopefully one day I'll get there for sure. They always go to some faraway places, and kind of hard to go somewhere on a whim. You get like a week's notice to fly out somewhere, but I'm going to make it happen one day. Enjoy it. Enjoy the game. Enjoy game day. And here's hoping Corso picks your team, man. I really hope he does. That'd be pretty sick. You'll find out if we're picking Brutus or the Leprechauns tomorrow with that Ohio State Notre Dame prediction video right here on the channel. With that, guys, I think we wrap things up. 2 hours on the dot. Perfect way to end this Tuesday evening. Took a handful of calls tonight, I know, but I'm glad we focused more on the chat today. I think y'all brought the heat, man. You brought the great questions. You brought some great comments. Got some great points. It was some good stuff. It was some really good stuff. And after a interesting week 3, it was good to rehash that. And with a major, major week on deck, one of the biggest weekends that we've ever had in college football, at least in recent memory. Again, the most ranked versus ranked matchups in a single week since 2015. This was a great way to kind of segue into it. Tomorrow, again, we begin our game of the week predictions. It kicks off with Ohio State and Notre Dame. And then we have 3 more coming out, 2 on Thursday, 1 on Friday. Stay tuned for those. We're going to have you covered, nonstop content all week long. Games on Saturday, right back here on Sunday, and then right back here on live streams next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. We're going to bring you a 12-team playoff, what it's going to look like. We're going to take more of your calls. We're going to take more of your questions and your stuff in the chat. We're going to be doing all of it. We want you right here. So make sure to hit that like button on the way out if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button, comment, share the videos, check out the expert picks. Man, 25 away from a 24-hour live stream. 25 for 24. We're very, very close. Spread the word. Help us get there. But before that, Thomas, we appreciate you. Thank you. Doggy, thank you. C. Glassman, Duncan, Ty Halpern, everybody that did the super chat. Mitch, Kenny, Luis Ramos, South Tex, our man Danny, Ty, Anthony for the Venmo. We appreciate you guys. Lakers Dude 7, college football guy, Josh Swinton, DM, Eddie Rose, Walter McKay, Ray Johnson. Try to hit everybody on here. Nova Dude 316. Again, Anthony, John Sarian, Kenny, David. Scrolling up. Come on now. SBO Kennels. Oh, man, we had a lot of stuff today. South Tex, Flobe, Eugene Murphy, Robert, and anybody else we may have missed. We appreciate every single one of you. You guys have a great rest. Stephen Cuffey, how could I forget? Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy week 4. Enjoy the content coming up over the next couple of days, and we'll see you next time right here, next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time on the Gridiron Expert. Good night, everybody.